Okay, welcome to episode 2 of the 2022 Let'sRun.com Pro Coaches Tour. Last week, we were joined by On Athletics Club coach Devin. This week's guest is Danny Mackey. He is the head coach of the Brooks Beasts. This is Danny's 10th year as coach in Seattle. He's coming off the squad's first Olympic medal in Tokyo, with Josh Kerr earning the bronze in the 1500 meters last summer. Danny, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, looking forward to talking.
Yeah, I guess, the reason we're doing this series is sort of catching up with the top coaches in the country, seeing how last year went, seeing how this year they think is going to go. Looking at 2021 for your group, how do you think it went for you guys? What were the highs? What were the lows?
So I look at a couple different metrics to assess the season. One would be injury rate, and then how many people are running the championships. And so we had 100% health in the roster for that, which was the first time that's happened. That's really rare. You're beating other teams by a fair amount in terms of like getting them healthy. It's a lot. And then the other part would be improvement. And we had everybody but Garrett Heath in PR and Drew Windle. But Garrett, a little bit of like a caveat with him because he was 35 and he made the Olympic trials final. He was leading. So I feel good because 12 out of the 14 in PR'd and then everybody ran the championships. So I feel good about that year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. You guys had a medal in one of the biggest events in track and field in the 1500 meters. Is that not one of the metrics you used to evaluate whether it was a good year?
No, not, I mean, no, that matters, but it wasn't. There's so many things that can change the course of that one day. Those two other things I talked about are cumulative, and so I think Josh doesn't medal if he's not healthy all year like that. And so, that's the outcome of those first two things. But I don't really look at it like that. Like, I think it's a very important part of it, of the progress of the team, and maybe you guys don't talk to me if Josh doesn't medal. I don't know. Maybe Robert, you don't think I'm a good coach like you said earlier, but those things I guess matter to get recruits, and it matters a lot to Josh, and the team cares about it because now they've seen it. But it's not like, I guess when I think of the question, I think of like from my objectives, like what did I look at before the season started, and medaling was like the goal for Josh, but it wasn't like the team kind of metric I was looking at.
Yeah. But do you feel like now that he has that on his resume and now that you have it on your resume as a coach, that you've had people look at you differently, the athletes who might be joining the group view you guys differently because of that?
I don't know. I'm so detached. I had a podcast yesterday. I'm so detached from it that I feel it's a weird question because this is just how my view is. I put so much brain power into each athlete, specifically Josh. That was one of his targets. Well, that was his main target. I put a lot of thought into it, and I was so invested in it that like I was literally in the hospital after the season because I was that sick, because I was just not sleeping and thinking a lot about it and trying to make sure I was there for him. So it matters a ton. On the flip side of it, I was at pre 2 weeks later, and it was the first meet after the Olympics had ended, and Pete Julian came up to me and he goes, "Hey, congrats, man." And I felt like an idiot because I said, "What?" Like I was like, the races hadn't happened yet. And I was like, was he watching pre-race? Did he see did Henry or Marta look good? And he was like looking at me, he's like, "I'm on the medal." I was like, "Oh," like I just, yeah. So it's just this kind of like, there's a dichotomy to it in my mind. I don't know. We didn't get any recruits. I think we signed Isaiah Harris anyways. So I guess I'll know in June, or as the season rolls out, like if people look at us differently, or me or Josh, but about it, I'm not sure. I know I look at it this way. I got asked yesterday about some coaches that I think are some of the best at what they do. And the two coaches I mentioned did not have medals this year. So I think they're very good coaches. I don't think that Steve Kerr is less of a coach because Golden State struggled. It's hard. It's like there's a lot of things that you might not have control over that can cause you to not win a championship. So, and they have a lot of easier path than we do because we're looking at a day like Josh could have not made it through the first round, and he was in 320. He ran 329 flat. He's probably 327 shape if we were to time trial it. So it doesn't change his fitness, So it's a hard one for me to really like totally have everything hang on it.
I mean, we can get into the whole discussion maybe towards the end of whether the athlete makes the coach or the coach makes the athlete, because
athlete makes the coach. There's not a debate. Yes, there's no debate about that. If I'm at my best, I'm like maybe 2%, 3% for Josh. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Their discussion's done. All right, that was good. That was easy.
He's like, I can help a lot, but that 3%'s a ton. But he's his parents and the genetics and the team. There's so many other things that go into it. Maybe he gets fifth, but I don't know. Maybe I think of that a lot. Like I think I've said this before, not in a forum like this because I don't get asked it, but I will likely look like a better coach if we keep signing people like Isaiah Harris. But I don't, maybe over time I get better, but the athletes make the coach for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I think Rojo, who's not on this podcast, would kind of agree.
You disagree with me?
No, he would agree. He's like, I coached the Ivy League. I couldn't get the same recruits that Princeton got every year.
Oh, yeah.
You can only do so much.
Right.
And I wasn't going to go there this early, but like there was this thread on Let's Run. Is Danny Mackey a bad coach or just really unlucky? And that was in April. I heard you also mention this on Josh Kerr and David Rubich's podcast, Sit and Kick, one of the few running podcasts that I actually listen to. So it's very entertaining. But this thread, I think, was in April. Then I think you said it like all your guys and girls, most of them like PR'd at this next meet. Then, as you said, kept going on throughout the season. But then somebody bumped the thread in August and is like, Olympic medal, he's a good coach. But you've been doing the same stuff for 10 years now. But there has to be some pressure to get these external accomplishments, right? At some point, Brooks wants to see certain metrics, right?
Yeah.
Or like, for me at the Let's Run level, so much is focused on whether people making world's teams in the U.S., whether you make the Olympics. And then I think at the global level, it's whether people medal. But, or maybe let's rewind. 10 years ago, you start this, you're 31 years old. Like, what was the goal? How many people were you coaching? Now maybe there's the expectation, okay, we need a medalist, we need Olympians. But back then, what was the plan? You hadn't coached anybody. I mean, now you've got the credentials and this sort of external validation that you're a good coach, but rewind us a bit.
So when I was in college, I wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor, and then I wanted to be a college professor and coach. So there's an element to that that's a service role. And I think that, I'm highly analytical in terms of how I think. And so those jobs just seemed calming to me. And so when I got the job and when I was 31, I was just really excited because I got to work with humans and they're really complex and that keeps me engaged. And I've always done sports, and the reason, even now at 41, I compete. And so I'm just a competitive person as well. So that job, it's a job that I think at 31, I thought I'd be really good at, and I enjoyed it. And I thought it was something I could get better. And there's some measurable things like you're talking about, like improvements and people getting faster and stuff like that. And so there's something for me that I could, I don't do well when somebody's like, you can ask my old bosses, current boss, like, I don't care for a pat on the back and somebody be like, hey, I think you did good today. Like, I didn't care about that as an athlete. Like, I know the outcome's the outcome. And so, yeah, at 31, we had 5 athletes in the team and total, and, a couple that were seriously injured when I got to start coaching them, a couple that didn't even make USAs. And so we had to build from that. but the approach in terms of like, I didn't have in my mind of like, I want to have 10 medals or something. Like I wanted to get to that point. I don't have any less drive. If Josh would have won the Brooklyn Olympic record, if Marta would have medaled, whatever like high thing could have happened, I don't think I'd be that much different in terms of my intensity like now. So, but I do tend to take failures pretty hard. So it's weird because in some ways I wish it was equal for me as a person. But when we had a really rough year in 16, like people just struggled in the championships and the culture was rough, and it to some degree that kind of carried on through 2018, and it like almost killed me. Like it was really, really hard. If it wasn't for Dan Paff, I would have quit because my joy was taken out of it. And so the thing that I think, listening to him and him telling me about some of his struggles and me trusting him, the thing that shifted in 19 was the culture and me looking forward to being at work and me being around these athletes that I knew they just wanted to push themselves and see what they were made of, do it the right way, and really like challenge me that way. And so, like that's stuff that like builds. So when we get to something like the Olympics where a lot of people pay attention, I know it's at stake, but it's not equal, I guess. Like I take the failures parts way, way harder than the joy of them doing well. I'm more relieved and happy for them versus like thinking, oh, you did a really good job here. And I think it probably to like, I don't know if I recruit necessarily the best because I'm maybe too small s stoic, not capital S stoic about some things.
I heard you mention Dan Paff, and he's one of two people who I've ever said is a coaching genius. The other one was my coach, John Kellogg. I did a fifth year at the University of Texas. I don't even know if Dan knows who I am. I was just some, 30-minute 10K distance runner. At the time, for people who don't know Dan, he was probably most known for coaching Donovan Bailey to the 1996 Olympic 100 meters. At Texas, he was the field events coach. They were winning, I think, long jump, triple jump, pole vault titles. And I'm like, wait, I thought you were a sprint coach. And then he's talking to me about what I'm thinking about when distance running. He'd coached some 10K runner at LSU. And I'm just like, he expanded my horizons so much. But what did he tell you? What sort of relationship do you have, Dan? And also check out Altus. He's in charge of Altus now. But we'll put a link in the show notes, everybody.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, because listening to you on some other podcasts as well, like it sounds like you have a network of support, other coaches, you're reading books. What did Dan do for you?
Well, I saw him. We were having a meal together, and I'm good friends with Stu McMillan as well, who's a sprint coach. That's I think Stu's the president of Altus and Kevin Tyler's the CEO. I can't remember who's what in there, but yeah, it's funny. I actually became friends with Dan. I didn't know who he was. I knew who he was, but I was in a meeting, didn't know that was Dan Paff, and I was arguing with him about training. And so this was like my first or second year in the job. And then because I was late to the meeting, and then when it ended, they had introduced people, and if you've met Dan, he's an unassuming person. And they said, okay, well, thank you, Dan Paff and John Vadina. And I'm like, fuck, I just said that to Dan Paff. Like, I'm just an idiot. So after that meeting, we talked for a long time, for hours about training. And yeah, we developed a friendship and talked to him every week. Sometimes it's like lighthearted stuff. Sometimes it's just random. Like I sent him the workout that Ron Warhorst and his crew had, we were just talking about it. And sometimes it's about biomechanics. And so in 2016, we were having a meal and was struggling, and to put it lightly. And yeah, he just took me aside and he just said, I've been doing this for a long time. You're really good at what you do. This is just part of it. Don't quit. And I didn't tell anybody that was like a thought in my mind, but he read it pretty well. And so I just really simply just stuck that out. I was like, okay, yeah, I have good resolve and conviction in my mind. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to stick it out. And so that's what I did.
There's one thing I wanted to ask about. I imagine this might have been one of the trickier things you've had to deal with as a coach. It's Allie Ostrander. She ran a personal best last year in the Olympic trials final, but she's also been very open about her struggles with an eating disorder. She left the team at the end of last year. Were you sad to see her go, and just how difficult was it as a coach going through that with her the last couple of years?
It was really, really hard. Yeah, that stress load of trying to help Allie navigate the eating disorder was in and of itself like its own job. And there's not a blueprint for this. So I had to pull in A, people that are experts, and B, people that I trust that would really look out for her best interest, and then like me to try to be the filter if they're good at their job or not. When like even thinking about it, because we were in the teeth of it last year in January. We were in Albuquerque, and there was a lot of conversations with her. I was really worried about her, so it was tough. In the fast, she's, if you say like I'm sad to see her go, I mean, I could dive into how tough it was personally. It just was hard, really hard on me. And we got through the summer, and then we had a couple conversations with her support team, which is like therapist, psychologist, nutritionist, and medical doctor. And like I was wanting her. It's tough. Like I think for because of my role in that support group is I wanted her to be competitive and healthy as an athlete. And so the way to go about it, was not being an athlete. So it's a little bit like counterintuitive. So Allie and I worked through that in September, after the season was over. And so I have like this split mind with it, where she's, from an athletic standpoint, in terms of her potential, it's really high. It's incredibly high. So I like to see people that are into sport that can do that. And she's fun to work with because she's willing to work too hard, but she'll push herself unbelievably hard. And that's an inspiring person to be around. But the other side of it, so I miss that part of her as an athlete. But the other side of it is like, I'm glad that she's going this way in terms of, I think it takes a lot of discipline. We talk about this in the team a lot, where it takes discipline to have restraint and back down and know when you need to take rests. And so I haven't seen her too much. She still lives in Seattle. Marta's husband's birthday was like maybe like 6 weeks ago, and I ran into her and I talked to her for quite a bit. And she's, we text and stuff like that and keep in touch that way. And she's running and she seems to be healthy. So, for her, when we've talked, it was like the best story would be she's healthy in 20, 30 years. The other part of it is like, if she's healthy enough and she decides she wants to come back as a pro athlete and it's on her terms, I'd love to see that, but there's not like, I think one of the things that's tricky with an eating disorder is you don't want to have that be the outcome goal that you're chasing, because that could be the problem. So what I mean when I say it's her choice is like, it's her making that decision, not like the disorder driving it. And so she's, I hope she should be in a good spot with it. So as long as she tracks well, I'm happy with how she's going to end up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone in the sport just hopes she can be healthy and happy moving forward. So I know Brooks personally has been supportive of her with treatment and that sort of thing. So I think it's been encouraging to see. In terms of, she obviously left, but then you've also added a number of athletes this season. I guess, can you run through just the big additions and what you're sort of expecting from them this year?
Yeah, so we signed, when NCAA ended, we signed Waleed, Lori, and Devin. And then we just signed Isaiah Harris a couple weeks ago. So it's a pretty big recruiting class. We haven't actually added a full beast male in 4 years. So we've added 3 guys. The expectations, we just had a meeting with and Devin. He struggled his last couple of years at Texas A&M. Like, don't think he's run faster than 149 and didn't make NCAAs. And you think about like where his trajectory was 2 years prior. He got off track. So we're trying to get him, and he's doing a really good job of understanding what it takes to be a pro and those types of things. Waleed and Lori, yeah, like my main goal for them is keep them healthy and then they improve. They both, yeah, like some of that first season for me is exploratory, where it's like, let's get a gauge on like how high their ceiling could be, as a pro, where it's like, are they trying to podium at USA's, or are they trying to podium at like a global championships and be in diamond leagues? So that's the goal for everybody on the team, but we'll sort that out over this year. And Isaiah's different. He's a couple years older. So for him, it's to be, top 8 in the world. And from there, we see what happens in some of the championship races. But he wants to go after the best, the best in the sport and beat him. So that's what we're going to try to do.
Yeah. Just for our listeners, I'll clarify. Waleed is Waleed Suleiman from Ole Miss. He was third in the NCAA 1500. Lori Barton from Clemson. She was the NCAA runner-up at 800. And then Devin Dixon, who was the NCAA runner-up in 2019. I'm sure our listeners will know who Isaiah Harris is. But with Devin, you mentioned, his struggles. Like, I was looking at his results. So he ran 147 last year, but this was after, and he didn't make it to the Olympic trials. And this was after running 144 at age 21 in 2019. Like, what went wrong for him at Texas A&M after 2019?
I mean, obviously I know, but trying to think of things that I would want to share. The simple answer is just, he got a little hurt, got a little off track. And that just can accumulate pretty quickly to where you're just not where your ceiling is. So there was a little bit of risk in signing him, but when hopefully he runs well enough and you guys they're talking to him, because his personality is, I love what he brings to the team. He's who I voted for. We do a team award every week or 2 weeks. So he's who I voted for because I think his adaptation over the last couple of months has been really quick for a rookie. So nothing major. There wasn't like a serious injury or A&M did something terribly wrong. He went through a lot of coaching transitions there. That didn't help, but it was more cumulative, like little things that got him off track.
Yeah, and he's run very fast in the 400. He ran 45.22 in the Open 4 at age 20. This was all the way back in 2018. He's split faster than that in relays. Where does his just pure speed rank among people you've coached?
So the fastest person I had before was Kaz Loxam, and then I think Shaquille Walker was a little bit faster, but I only had Shaq for a year till he moved on. So Isaiah's fast, but Devin's next level. I've jokingly talked with Stu and Dan about like learning how to do block starts, because when he ran 43.93 FAT split, he was, if you watch the race, he was trying to win that anchor leg, and so Norman's pretty good at the quarter, I would say.
Yeah, this was peak Michael Norman 2018, right?
Yeah, yes. And so, and I'm not, I say that like a little tongue in cheek, but I'm also like, maybe, I don't like, so yeah, he's got some wheels. We did some testing last week in the weight room. He's an explosive dude. It's fun. It's really fun seeing that. I'm looking forward to him being fully healthy for a year and just like really letting him rip. So.
And Isaiah, he has, his Nike contract was up. He joined you guys. He'd been with his college coach, John Gondak, for a while. Did he come to you? How did that come about, him joining the group?
I'm trying to think exactly. Well, in 2018, when we didn't sign him, that was I think that's the most upset I've been. I've not signed any recruit. I was really bummed when against Shelby in 15. Shelby Land, but and Isaiah bothered me. So from that day, I paid attention closely to what was going on, and his agent's Ray Flynn, and I couldn't remember our offer, but I remember the Nike one was like about the same, and so I asked him this summer, There's a few athletes, like a very short list of people that I would check up on and ask their agent about. So he's one of them. I was like, hey, is he up? And he was. And so, like when I could start talking to him, we did. But he was, I also heard through the grapevine he was interested too. So it's like kind of asking around a little bit, but I initiated it. Yeah.
Do you feel when athletes switch coaches, a lot of times there's a big jump stimulus, or do you find it difficult at first? I guess it works both ways. Maybe it's individual, but what are your thoughts on a new athlete coming in, especially a more veteran athlete like that?
Usually it's trickier. Yeah. Cause they've the transition could be, a little bit harder. There needs to be a lot more communication around it. When Isaiah came out on his recruiting visit, he just did the training we were doing. Like I was like, what do you want to do? Cause he was there for like 3 days in Seattle. He goes, I'll just do whatever Drew and Kidder are doing. I'm like, well, you sure? And so it's been like that. Like outside of him and I not knowing each other, and me being aware of that, like if you would think I've been working with him for 5 years. So like I said, I'm just coming off team award stuff, so team voting stuff. So he got a lot of votes today, and a lot of the people on team are just like, his transitions have been so smooth. Like he's just bought in fully. He asks really, he's still asking questions. He's not like an empty vessel that just says, takes what I say as the gospel, which he shouldn't ever do. But yeah, it's been really smooth. Whereas I compare to like Nick Simmons, we had to really soft pedal that one, which Nick and I were aware of what we're doing, or Garrett Heath. Like Garrett and Nick were more similar than Isaiah. Isaiah's just like one of the guys already. Yeah.
Can you explain these awards? Like what awards are they voting for? It's once a week, you said? How exactly does this work?
It's like once every 2 weeks. So we have like we have a wolf like necklace. And so the wolf is our unofficial mascot of the team, and there's a reason why it's like that. So they're interesting animals. I'll keep it short. I won't say more unless you're really curious. But so every 2 weeks or so we vote, and so you vote for somebody on the team who deserves this award, and it could be just based on performance or them being nice or working hard or whatever it is, and you explain why you're voting for them. So Devin won this week. Isaac won 2 weeks ago, but a lot of people voted for Devin for the reasons on, his personality and his evolution. But Isaiah was second, so he just lost out to Devin. But yeah,
I mean, earlier with you talking about how the athlete makes the coach, and I feel like maybe you don't know the top ceiling of the athletes, but it's so high for certain athletes. And even as a journalist, I can see it. Like Devin Dixon, I know he's run 144 before, so even though he was struggling this year, like when we were talking about the Olympic trials, we're like, don't forget about Devin Dixon. Somehow, if that guy gets it together, he can make the team. On the other end, like Drew Wendell, he's got a silver medal, indoor silver medal. You don't do that unless you're very good. He struggled of late, but he wasn't that good in college. So does it take you a while to kind of see what an athlete's potential is? And I don't know, is that sort of innate? Like it's just a kind of God-given talent, or you really, a couple of years, you're like, oh my God, this guy has way more potential than I thought.
So I've had a couple different things happen where you like Drew, after 2 years, I started to see some things, and I'm like, oh shit, that's pretty higher than we were thinking. So like it's innate, but there's I think where people get from my standpoint, because I see them so much, and this is the only job I'm doing, it's like working with these people. So there's these physical attributes that they have, and you see people like tend to lean on speed. If they have speed, then the ceiling's higher. Well, not necessarily, because Devin Devin's so fast twitch, like a couple mile run's not easy for him, like literally not, like metabolically it's hard. And then you have somebody like Josh, where like I was talking to a recruiter, I was like, he's got over 6 seconds faster here. Like he's improved a ton. And he's got obviously these talents, but if you did a NFL combine, he would, I think one thing he'd probably show up on him being high physically. He's healthy, one of his skills on top of some of the physical is like he can scaffold really well. Like he learns really quickly. So his skill acquisition's high, and that matters to the pro, because Simmons was good at that. Where when, even though he would like the transition was different than it was with Isaiah, Nick right away was like, I trust you, you're the coach. I don't want to deal with thinking about this. That's a skill to be able to know that like that's this person's job. I need to worry about what this like bucket of performance that I need to execute on. So the talent comes in a little different form. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time for me to kind of like have a good gauge on, like, if you had to pin me down and say like, what do you think Waleed can run? Like as in the 1500, I don't know. Like I wouldn't want to bet a ton of money on me being right. If you give me 2 years, I can get closer. But yeah, there's also a specific reason why I recruited Waleed. Like he is good 800 speed. He can run cross country. He never really did something crazy like at NCAA's, but he was there a lot and he got better a lot. He works well with Van Hoy. He's a good team guy, so there's all these things that kind of like start adding up, and you watch him run. He's 5'7", 135 pounds, like muscle, good. Some things that he can change mechanically that I think I can help him with. So there's some ceiling that left there, some meat on the bone left. So like those are the kind of things I'm thinking when I recruit that might move the ceiling up higher than just some of his race results.
We talked about how fast Waleed could run. You said Josh could run 327 last year. Nick Willis said Josh, he thought he could run 327. In my book, if you can run 327, you're pretty close to 326. Then do you start thinking about the world record? Is that crazy to think that Josh Kerr could challenge the 1500 meter world record? Is that something you even think about?
Yeah, we've talked about it. We're not like, we don't have, it would make sense to think that somebody can get like 2.5, 3 seconds quicker. So like, that's a logical thing. I know what's attached to that time as being a world record, but he's, and I'm glad he's like this because it's more in line with me. Like he'd rather continue trying making these teams, winning national titles, global titles. Like, if the medal, if there's a time that we can really sit down or like focus around trying to do that, that'd be super fun. But we've talked about it. Like, is that possible? And so, yeah, he thinks it is. I think he's right. Cause there's some things that we didn't fully, and sometimes you get into a trap of thinking, okay, if I do everything, they'll get better. That's not always the case because then they get tired, but he knows this. I didn't like take him to the well because he's 20. He just turned 24. So I knew that this could be an only Olympics, but where he was at in the stage of his career, we did the most that we could do. As he gets a little bit older, there's still some more work that we can do, some tweaking. And we're doing a few different things in training this year as well to see. So hopefully when he's 28, 29, still healthy, still super motivated, we get some good fortune in terms of like things line up where he's healthy on that day. And yeah, it'd be cool. I don't know in the next couple of years, because with all the global stuff going on, if we can set up like a time trial, but him and I don't really like those things. Like it's annoying to talk to these meets and have 2 pacers and who's doing it. I don't like that. I don't think it's good for the sport either.
Well, more immediately, he is racing this weekend in the Wanamaker Mile. Some very good competition in there. Clayton Murphy, Ollie Hoare. What do you expect from him, and how fit is Josh right now going into that race?
Yeah, so he's, I don't know, 85, 90%. Like, because the summer he's got to get ready for the summer. So we've been building. The 2 times that we've pushed it since coming back in October, like there's been 1 time trial, 1 workout where he went really hard. And I think the fact that he's coming off of where he was at a fitness level, certain point, even with the dip and being conservative in training and not being on the track that much, he's just at another level. So he's going to try to beat those guys. And that's when we talk our race strategy tomorrow. Like it's going to be revolved around that. Time wise, it's tough because like those dudes have been running super fast somehow all year last year, even in the 5K in December. So like Josh couldn't have run 13:0, but that's December. Now it's January, and we have to go. He needs to be going into races with the mentality of trying to win, even if all his tools aren't sharp yet. I think it's it's important. So he's mentally there in like June, July. So yeah, time wise, that don't care. There's a UK record that's like attainable, but he wants to win.
All right. Well, that's going to be one of the races to meet. It should be a good one this weekend. I mean, we barely even talked about your women's team. I'm sure there's like a million things we could talk about with you. We maybe need to do a
3 women out of Melrose, 2 got COVID last week.
Oh no.
They should be they're out of they'll be out of quarantine to travel, but two of the 3 they got sick. Marta and Nia. So but Nia looked awesome, has been looking awesome. Marta looks really good. Like they've both taken huge steps up. Bohalski's just been building. So they should all 3 do well in Millrose, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Allie Bohalski, that was one guy I was talking to Robert before the show, like saying how good she was. And I don't think Robert like realized she was 5th at the trials last year, and she's like a sub 15 woman now. Like I feel like she, of all the women, of all the athletes in your group, she flies most under the radar, but she's like really good.
Yeah. No, she ran 4:06.1. Also, like I know it's not 14:58 or whatever she ran, but yeah, she flies under the radar.
Yeah.
So you must have had three 5th placers at the trials last year. Is that right?
3. Yeah. And I think this will probably get some conflict. I think Nia would have been 3rd or 4th in the final. She didn't get tripped by Mu.
Oh wow.
Nia looked good. Nia looked very good going into the final.
She's someone that's kind of been robbed of all these great opportunities because she didn't get a senior year at Penn because of COVID. And then she makes the Olympic trials final, but she trips. So yeah, like you think she's going to be a major player in the 800 this year?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I tend to be pessimistic. So that goes, I think she will be. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing how people can go under the radar, John, because Allie, like, I was real quickly looking. I'm like, who did the best of the trials? I didn't even put her in the database to go look at her name. So I totally skipped her. Nia, I couldn't remember what happened, but I it's like she's good, but I
think
knew
she won
didn't do
3 different. She didn't break 2. She hasn't broken 2 yet, but she won 3 different races, 3 pro races last year. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's going to be such a hard team to make because you've got 2 of the 3 Olympic podium athletes. You've got Ajay Wilson, and it would, if Wilson or Rogers have won the world title in 2019, or if Athing Mu shows up and wins the Diamond League last year, you get an extra spot. But neither of those things happen. So there's only 3 spots in that event. Yeah,
the 4th place finisher at USA's could medal in Eugene. Yeah, it's tough, and probably 5th actually because. There's a couple really, 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 really good ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And it's a coach, like a thing. What do you think? She never broke 2 till last year. She went from 201 to 155. No, Athing Mu. Yeah. How do you think of a coach? What do you think of that sort of transformation? It's amazing, right?
Yeah. With her, it's like, she's just such a phenomenal athlete. Like, I'm not surprised by that. Like,
okay.
And I've seen the dark side. I've seen the devil in the sport with the shady stuff with drugs. I know that coaches cross the line with thyroid, which should be the legal drug for sure because it's anabolic. But when with the thing, like that never once crossed my mind with her. I just think that she's got the tools, she's got the mentality. She's just that good. She's gonna be a force to reckon we deal with for sure.
Yeah, been amazing in a good way. But what drug did you say should be banned?
Thyroid.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
We could have a whole nother podcast on that.
Yes. Gladly talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably going to do it for this episode. Unless, you have one more.
One more last. We said 30 minutes. We're way over that. But on that Sit and Kick podcast, I heard you talking about books. And some quote, like, I've read a lot of negotiating books and like who to bring onto the team, books from special forces. And I'm like, I want to know what books Danny Mackey's reading. We should have like a Let's Run book club. So if you just want to tell me some books people should read, or if you want to do a book club separately, I'm game. But however you want to answer my book question, because it seems like you're a guy who learns from, Dan Paff, everybody. But I feel like there's so much more. Everybody, a runner, coaches, we can learn from stuff outside of running as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to. We just did a book club with the team. It's The Practice of Mindfulness by Brad Sundberg. And so That was a really good book. I highly suggest it. And then I was listening to this doctor that studies like he's a psychologist. We might go into a book called The Clock with No Hands. So I got to look into it a little bit more. But if you want to do it, well, and I'll let you know what book we choose. We can rope you in to the book club with the team.
Okay, I'm down. I'm going to learn new stuff in 2022. COVID put everybody's life in sort of hiatus. I guess not you and your team. You guys kept going like this, but the rest of us got to get out of our shells and expand our horizons this year.
I started playing video games during the pandemic. I haven't done that since college. I got an Xbox. Bad. Call of Duty.
Got to have your diversions, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, Danny, we really appreciate you joining us, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on your see we'll see you on the circuit at some point this year, but appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.